And now, it's time for Healing from Within with your host, Tony Valen.
Welcome to Healing from Within. I'm your host, Tony Valen. You can contact me, tony@tonyvalen.com, or visit our website, healingfromwithin.net. Follow the show on Twitter @TVHFW. The show is also available on iTunes and YouTube. Just search Healing from Within with Tony Valen, or look for the Tony Valen channel on YouTube. Let's check in with one of our previous guests.
This is Joanna Gerard here on behalf of Healing from Within with Tony Valen on Blog Talk Radio. You can visit me at my site, www.joannagerardpsychic.com. Today I want to talk about moon signs. Your moon sign is different than your sun sign. Your moon sign is your emotional nature, how you deal with your emotions, and what motivates and drives you emotionally. So it's actually quite important in the chart. We'll begin with the moon in Aries. Aries is a fire sign. So the moon is an emotional planet in general, and combining it with a fire sign, it can make someone a self-starter, determined, honest, and passionate. On the negative side, we can find people that are impulsive, accident-prone, easy to anger, and kind of abrupt at times. The second sign in the zodiac is Taurus. Taurus is an earth sign. This is always nice to have your moon in an earth sign simply because it kind of mellows out the emotional nature of the moon. So with this placement, we see people that are typically loyal. They're practical and they're down to earth. Now, every sign has a negative, so if these people aren't using their energy correctly, they can become stubborn, overindulgent, kind of flat, or sometimes like emotionless. The next sign we have is Gemini. Gemini is an air sign. On the positive, this can make people funny. They're really usually pretty efficient communicators, and they're pretty talkative. However, on the negative, they can become fickle, unable to commit, and unreliable. The moon in Cancer. The moon is ruled by Cancer, so it's in its natural placement if you happen to have the moon in Cancer, and this is nice. Cancer is another water sign. However, this placement makes people sensitive, emotional, nurturing, and intuitive. These are the caretakers of the world. But negatively, these people become clingy, hypersensitive, and a little bit codependent at times. The next sign is Leo. Leo is another fire sign. So if somebody has a moon in Leo, we see big personalities here. These are people that are the center of attention. They're loyal, they're protective, they're entertaining. A lot of these people go into show business and things of that nature. But on the negative, they can become egotistical, self-centered, unwilling to see their own faults, but able to see the faults of others. The next sign is Virgo. That's another earth sign. So with the moon in Virgo, we see people that are logical, focused, and good at details. Anyone with strong Virgo influence in their chart is good at details or the medical field. On the negative, they can become hypercritical. They can have sort of a negative demeanor in general and maybe a little bit anal. They have a tendency to want to do everything by the book because they're not seeing the big picture, but they're seeing instead the small details. The next sign is Libra. Libra is an air sign. So these people are the natural peacemakers in the zodiac. And with the moon there, they become diplomatic. They're artistic and social. And their emotions are kind of driven by these qualities. Negatively, they're slow to take action simply because they just want harmony all the time. And they can be kind of wishy-washy and maybe a little superficial also. The moon in Scorpio. Scorpio is another water sign. On the positive, these people are psychic. They typically have strong willpower when they make up their mind to do something. And they're usually pretty helpful to the underdog or those who are less fortunate, as animals or kids or anything like that. And bearing in mind, all moon and water people have psychic tendencies. This doesn't mean that just because you don't have your moon in a water sign that you don't have those tendencies, but the water signs tend to be a little bit more in tune with other things. On the negative with a Scorpio moon, you see people that have a tendency to be depressive or unwilling to change or let go and kind of obsessive compulsive. The moon, it's a difficult placement for the moon because it's considered in its fall, so these people typically have more challenges emotionally. The moon in Sagittarius, it's another fire sign. So with these people, we see a love of adventure, a philosophical nature. They're usually good teachers in every capacity, not just in a regular school, but as far as teaching other people things. Negative, they're kind of unwilling to commit to one person or path at times. They can be a little bit reckless and aggressive, and these are all qualities they want to watch out for. The next sign is Capricorn. That's another earth sign. On the positive, these are the super ambitious people. They're reliable, they're patient and calm. I find the moon in Capricorn to be good at kind of like a Libra being the peacemaker, seeing both sides, simply because everything is so down to earth with these people. They don't let their emotions control them like so many other signs do. On the negative, you see people that could become or come across as aloof or emotionally distant and overly focused on goals or objectives to the point where they can't see anything else except for what they're trying to succeed in. The moon in Aquarius. Aquarius is an air sign. People always think it's a water sign, but it's an air sign. It's the water bearer. So they go through life not feeling weighed down with the emotional stuff that water signs need to. So the good thing about having a moon in Aquarius is these people are generally able to get along with all different types of people. They're pretty friendly. They're interesting. They are prone to anxiety on the negative, but they can suffer from low self-esteem at times also, but then they kind of flip-flop into this arrogance thing. So these are all kind of qualities. They need balance. Sometimes Aquarius is another fixed sign, and the fixed signs tend to have trouble with letting things go and maybe balancing things. The last sign of the zodiac is Pisces. Pisces is also an extremely psychic sign. So anybody with a strong Pisces or a Neptune aspect to the moon or anything like that, a strong Neptune in the chart, pretty much is probably very intuitive. These are also compassionate people. They're understanding and kind. However, with this placement, you also want to watch out for addictive tendencies, and I don't just mean to drugs and alcohol, but it could be food, sex, other people, shopping, you name it, they can become addictive. That's true of all water signs. But there is also a tendency to play the victim or martyr. They can be unable to differentiate between fantasy and reality, which can be a nice thing, you know, if in the creative fields or the artistic fields, but as far as dealing with people, sometimes it can be a little bit difficult. I want to thank everybody for listening today. Again, this is Joanna Gerard here on behalf of Healing from Within with Tony Valen on Blog Talk Radio.
Joining us on today's show is Armand, the musical minister. He's half of the crossover duo, Armand and Angelina. You can learn more about Armand and Angelina by going to armandandangelina.com. Armand, welcome to the show.
Hello, Tony. Great to be here.
Well, thank you so much. Armand, the one thing I didn't get from you, and I want to make sure that the listeners have, is do you all have a Facebook page or a Twitter?
We have a Facebook page. It's Armand Angelina Della Volpe. It's a joint, personal page, music page. It kind of covers everything. It's a fully self-expressed page.
Absolutely great. And Della Volpe is Della, V as in Victor, OLPE, and that's P as in Paul.
That's perfect.
So I'm going to start the interview, Armand, by asking you the question I normally start out with. What are your gifts, and how did your journey begin?
Woo! That's wonderful. Wonderful question. Well, my gifts are eclectic. For me to be fully self-expressed, I need to be singing, I need to be speaking about spiritual principles, and I need to be having as much fun as possible. So we often say that our program is music, message, and mirth. And I began speaking and singing about 20 years ago when I just had a calling to leave my bar bands, the music I was playing in clubs at night, and go out and speak and be a part of the human potential movement instead of just being a participant in it, to actually be a bigger part of it. And so that happened around 1996, and it's just moved from there. In 2001, I had the pleasure of having Angelina join my ministry, which now is our ministry, and we travel around about 270 days a year.
Wow.
Speaking and performing and teaching Native American flute, just doing what we were here to do.
What type of music did you do before you came into this calling?
Well, when I was in my bar bands, I just did oldies, rock and roll, top 40 type stuff. Not any heavy metal, but just rock and roll, Rolling Stones, Doors, REM, Hootie and the Blowfish, music like that.
Oh, wonderful. And what about Angelina? I know that she's classically trained. What type of music was she into?
Yeah, so Angelina has been a classical singer for 30 or 40 years. She was singing Italian songs at Alfredo's at Epcot Center for 10 years, from 1991 to 2001.
And how did you guys meet? And where did you meet?
I met Angelina when I was singing and speaking and teaching at her church in Orlando. I went there on a Sunday morning to do what I had been doing for 5 years. She took a liking to it. She started following me around, I guess, a little bit. Whenever I would play within 100 miles of her house, she would show up, and it was wonderful to see her, and we became phone friends for months, and then we decided to take it to the next level, so we became romantic partners, and then somehow our music started, we started to have a musical career together. It was kind of weird. I just invited her to come sing a song or two here and there, and before I knew it, we were a full-time act.
I've been blessed enough to listen to you talk and sing, and both of you, and you guys are just wonderful in person, and I loved, and you're very inspirational. Where do you think your inspiration comes from?
Well, in the beginning, going to unity churches and other metaphysical churches and reading all the books of the time, Wayne Dyer, Deepak Chopra, and expressing my personal flavor to what I was receiving there. In the last few years, a lot of the messages have not come from the outside. They have come through deep meditation and getting personal information along with external information. It's almost like everybody is thinking and talking about the same concept, but with a different flavor. We are putting forth our own particular flavor, and knowing that the people that want to have that will resonate with it. The people that don't, well, they'll find other ways to get what they need from other people.
Have y'all ever tried going mainstream, or is that what you're doing now?
We are definitely not doing that now. We did try to go mainstream a bit back in 2011. Mm-hmm. It was extremely humiliating. It did not work. We were used to the majority of the people hearing what we do, enjoying it, and when we moved into that more mainstream circle through reality television, we found that the majority of those folks did not like what we did and the way we did it. I always am reminded that the root of humiliation is humility. And so we are very grateful that we have a humility now that we didn't have before, that truthfully would not have been as dramatic had we not had that experience. So it's gone from a tragedy, which is what it felt like, to a true blessing, a blessing in our life now, and we're more committed than ever to doing the work we do now, which is a more of a humble, simple, church-to-church, gypsy, minstrel type of lifestyle.
So you said 2011, right?
Yes.
So I'm thinking a lot has changed since 2011. There seems to be somewhat of an awakening, some type of more understanding of what we do. And that's why we do what we do, which is introduce people like us to the world, because there's a need for it. Don't you agree? Absolutely. And Angelina and I both felt like 2014 was a shift. There was a shift in the energy. It didn't seem like we were struggling to go uphill anymore. It didn't seem like we were
fighting a mass consciousness, and 2015 so far appears to even be more of that. Everywhere we go, there seems to be more ears and eyes wanting to see and hear not only what we have to offer, but, consciousness shifting. I mean, just 5 years ago, if you said consciousness, most people, they would have said, oh, you mean like being unconscious or conscious? And that would have been about it. Nobody would have thought that it was a choice to be conscious or not while in a waking state, and people like Jim Carrey have come forward. A lot of what Oprah has done with her programs has raised the idea that it may be the most powerful word in this age of Aquarius that we're in, consciousness. And even in her other old TV show where she was exposing very, very new and provocative ideas, not to you and me, but to mainstream public. And that was a very important start.
Right. So for the benefit of the listeners, can you explain what you mean when you say the age of Aquarius? I've heard that so many times that I've never really asked what it means.
It's an astrological term. Apparently, every so many years we move into a different zodiac age. And apparently we were in the Piscean age for the last few hundred years, and now since somewhere around 2008 or 2009, we've moved into another age. The song was actually, a premonition. It was, they know, the astrologers, they know how long it takes to move through certain areas. I don't think it's a coincidence that the Mayan calendar was pointing to a new time now. It's Eckhart Tolle calls it, the new earth. To me, they're all pointing to the same thing. Exactly what you said, Tony, when you said things are starting to shift. It's not the end of the world, it's a shift of the world.
Absolutely. And I want to make sure that people know about you guys and your wonderful music. If someone wants to listen to your music, of which I want to thank you very much for giving me permission to use it, can you tell everyone where they can go to get the music?
Quickest way to get any of our music is to go to our website, which is armandandangelina.com. If you type on the web Armand and Angelina, we're the only ones, so that'll show up. Of course, we also have our tour schedule on there, and our favorite way to share what we do is in person, up close and personal. So it'll have all of our different locations. We play in Florida about 5 months of the year. We play out west, Arizona and New Mexico about 2 months out of the year, and the rest of the time all over the country.
And how do people know about you, or how do you go about visiting all these places? How do people invite you to come over?
Most of what we do, other than we perform at conferences, there are several different spiritual leaders that run events that invite us in to do music or speak or support them in what we do. So that's a part of what we do, but the majority of where we share our gifts are at what's called New Thought churches or metaphysical churches, like the one we most recently played, which is the Harmony Metaphysical Church in Tampa. Mm-hmm. And this weekend we will be at the Unity Church in the Grove, which is in Lakeland, Florida. So what we do is we just travel around church to church. We connect with them 6 months in advance to find out if they have an opening and they're interested in having us come. And then we build our tour around the yeses.
What type of events are you invited to mostly?
New Age or New Thought events is 99% of it, Very rarely. We have just started to play some other type churches because, in alignment with what you were saying, a lot of the other religions, Catholicism is having a huge change and shift in and being more open to other ideas and inclusiveness. And Joel Osteen, he's got the biggest church in the country, he is bridging a lot of the New Thought teachings with the more traditional Christian teachings and finding a balance there for a lot of people that like the idea of studying something that is practical and that can enhance your life right now not just focused on the past or the future.
When you speak, you just seem to have words that just go right to the heart. Where do you think that inspiration comes from? Because I know that when I heard you speak this past weekend at Harmony with the wonderful Reverend Sheila, your words and what you guys, the message you gave was just so inspirational to me. That's why I was so drawn to you immediately and wanted to talk to you. Where do you think that inspiration is coming from? Do you think it's your calling?
Well, I've had a calling probably since I was about 7 years old to speak to people, to reach out. There's an old saying, some of us are here to disturb the comfortable and comfort the disturbed. and I've resonated with that idea a bit, because that's a little bit of what I do. But a lot of it in the last few years has really been, I guess, revelations and experiential discovery through my own personal ups and downs in life, where, in the beginning of what I was doing, I was mostly just reinterpreting other research and wisdom that I'd come across and putting my own spin on it. And now it's more coming directly from my own experience. Part of it was I had a lot of breakdown in 2011, personal, emotional, depression, anxiety, hopelessness, all of those things. And again, like humiliation, those are all such fantastic teachers if you allow them to break your heart open. A lot of times people allow them to break their hearts, and they don't allow them to break their hearts open. They actually close up around that. I think we spoke a little bit about that on Sunday. Somehow, by the grace of God, I allowed my heart to break open enough to where it got bigger and stronger and more able to love and more able to see oneness and compassion. It was almost like a metaphysical, psychedelic opening,
When you say that, the way I interpret that for me and the way I function is sometimes people can be very cruel and very just cut down to the bone, but the bottom line is if I let go of my ego, I think I'm much willing to learn from that and live in gratitude of that lesson. But of course, then it is easier said than done because we are human.
Right. That sounds exactly in alignment with what I'm feeling right now.
I know that the shows that you put on the tour is called Our Neverending Story. Are you telling a story when you do your tour and when you do this show?
A lot of that is true. And actually, when we came out with our Age of Aquarius album last year, we started calling our Neverending Story tour the Age of Aquarius tour, as it's kind of evolved. But yes, there is still a lot of our story involved, especially when we go into a church for the first time or a spiritual center. We will share a bit of our journey and how we got to be together and what we're doing, and some of the lessons and the blessings and the gifts along the way. So yeah, our Never-Ending Story will always be a part of it. We just piggybacked the Age of Aquarius and some of the newer music and newer messages on top of it.
And speaking about your music, and this may be an unfair question to ask you because your music are like your children, is one of your songs your favorite? Can you tell me which one is your favorite?
I have favorites in different areas. I have favorites in different styles. I have favorites with different messages. However, the most important message that we are teaching right now is our divine nature, is the truth that there is a part of us that is eternal. There is a part of us that is always in touch with the highest good, that sees beauty in everything, is grateful all the time, and that is our innocent soul character. It goes beyond personality, although there may be some personality that is connected to it through different lifetimes, if there are different lifetimes. Mm-hmm. But so I have a song that I wrote that addresses our divine innocence, and it's called Innocent. And it deals with, and I believe I did sing that on Sunday, it deals with the idea that we imprison ourselves through our minds, through our thinking, that somehow seems more comfortable, or at least more familiar with the idea that we're small, weak, and flawed. And to me, if we could all learn that we're not small, we're not weak, and by God, we are not flawed, then all of the destructive behavior that people that feel small, weak, and flawed and helpless do would eventually cease. You know, we would reach it at the core. Rather than killing a terrorist, we could heal the part of us that leads to our own pain and terrorism or whatever.
Absolutely. And we happen to have a copy of that song. I'd like to play it for the listeners right now.
Fantastic.
Young kid who served his prison time for a crime he did not do. He gave a false confession, and when they asked him why, he said, "I did not know the truth." He was innocent. Thought about my own life, how I was like that kid when they told me I was bad. I offered my confession to what they said I did, and lost the childhood I once had. I am innocent. I did nothing wrong. Serving time for this crime for far too long. I am not to blame for what I didn't do. There is nothing I need to prove. I am innocent. I am innocent. Time for justice. This time I'll get it right. I'm finally hearing the whole truth. I fired all the jury and got the pardon I deserve, and freed the other inmates too. I am innocent. No, I did nothing wrong. Serving time for this crime for far too long. I am not to blame for what I didn't do. There is nothing I need to prove. I am innocent. No, I did nothing wrong. I've been serving time for this crime for way too long. I am not to blame for what I didn't do. There is nothing I need to prove. I am innocent. I am innocent. I am innocent. There is nothing I need to prove. I am innocent. You are innocent. We are innocent.
In the lyrics to the song, can you tell me what inspired the lyrics and how these lyrics came to you? What was your state of mind, state of consciousness at the time that you wrote this music?
So it was pretty simple. We were watching the Oprah show, and a couple of men were on the show, that had recently gotten out of jail because of DNA testing. They proved they were innocent, but they had been wrongly accused for, over a decade each for a crime they didn't do. And I realized that I had done that to myself. I had been punishing myself for upwards of 50 years because I believed that I was guilty of something, guilty of the wrong thoughts or the wrong actions or not being good enough. I think that everybody can relate at some point where they have not felt good enough. And even people that seem to be super achievers and have everything together, oftentimes a lot of why they became super achievers was to compensate for the fact that they really did not feel good enough. That show and those men and the idea of being accused of something you didn't do and buying into that and imprisoning yourself, which I think, even if you've never spent time in a real prison, we've certainly been a prisoner of our own negative thinking. It's extremely painful.
This is Tony Valen, host of Healing From Within. You can contact me, Tony at TonyValen.com. Visit our website, healingfromwithin.net. Follow the show on Twitter at TVHFW. The show is also available on iTunes and YouTube. Just search for Healing From Within with Tony Valen, or search for the Tony Valen channel on YouTube. We are talking to our guest, Armand, the musical minister. He's half of the crossover duo, Armand and Angelina. You can find them on Facebook, Armand and Angelina Della Volpe, that's D as in David, E-L-L-A, V as in Victor, O-L, P as in Paul, E. Now, Armand, I remember you talking about the song, and actually it was probably leading to the introduction of the song when I saw you live, where the thing that caught me kind of by surprise but still wonderful was when you gave us permission to forgive ourselves. That was so touching and so wonderful, and to me, it just seems like the most inspirational thoughts and words are just so simple that I can't believe the answer is so simple. You know what I mean?
I know exactly what you mean, and I got to tell you something. My brain really does not want to keep things simple. It just naturally, my beautiful bride, she is naturally thinking of things in a very simple, and my brain wants to complicate it, and it keeps me further and further away from what you were talking about, that simple truth. Reverend Sheila said something really great on Sunday. She said, it's very simple. It's right there on the plate. You can see it, but we want to put all this complicated gravy on it and wonder why the gravy is slipping off the side of the plate.
Right.
That really
true.
got me.
She is so wonderful. Yeah, she inspires me a lot as well. So what's next for you guys?
Next is really more and more of this now experience. We have committed to being of service as much as possible, and one of the things that means for us right now, while we're still strong and young and can do what we're doing the way we do it, traveling and setting up and carrying equipment and performing, is to play as many venues as we can. And so much of what I do is contacting venues to find an appropriate time for us to come. I'm so grateful that back in 2013, I found Reverend Sheila and Harmony Center. I did not know about it, and have found another venue, because typically we go to a venue every 18 to 24 months. So it's important to have lots of wonderful places to play and share. And this is what we're born to do, and we need to be available. The message I got more than ever this year, last year actually, was our job is to be available and show up and do what we do. And all the other details, finances, sales, numbers, attendance, all of that is not my job. Even filling the calendar is not my job. Calling and being available to fill the calendar is my job. And that's very simple. And that's keeping the voices in my head that would try to tell me otherwise, keeping them, just not entertaining, not believing them.
Well, I want to thank you so much, Armand, for being on the show. We really appreciate you giving us the time. So if people want to get more information on you guys, again, can you please give our listeners the website?
And that is armandandangelina.com, all spelled out.
Wonderful. And you can look through all the different tabs and know where they're going to be next, and all their music is available on the website. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Tony. It's been a pleasure, my friend.
You are listening to Healing from Within with Tony Valen here on Blog Talk Radio, airing Monday through Friday, 6 p.m. Eastern, 5 p.m. Central. Visit our website, healingfromwithin.net, or contact me directly, tony@tonyvalen.com. Please follow the show on Twitter @TVHFW. The show is also available on iTunes and YouTube. Just search Healing from Within with Tony Valen, or search for the Tony Valen channel on YouTube. Thank you so much. Love and light from all of us here at Healing from Within.